getting your fabric ready. One of the best parts of sewing is you get to choose the fabrics you want to use for your project. Assuming that if you're already watching this video, you've already picked out your fabric, and what I want to do is give you a couple of good best practices to make sure your fabric is ready for us to sew. Knowing that you guys have picked out cottons or woven fabrics, there's some special things that you need to take into consideration. It probably came off of a bolt like this from the fabric store, and on top of this bolt, you will often see some information on here. So here we go. Over here, there's some washing instructions. So this being a 100% cotton is telling us to machine wash with warm and mild detergent, non-chlorine bleach, tumble dry, low with a warm iron. So that means you really don't want to use any harsh detergent, something like a bleach, which could fade the color because that's a pretty dark color we had there. And it's going to make sure, one, your fabric is clean, and two, it's going to pre-shrink your fabric. Pre-shrinking your fabric is highly recommended because what it's going to do is take the woven fibers, this being cotton, and make sure that they shrink up to the size that they're going to be. If you don't do this, what could happen is you could sew your project and all of a sudden when you go to wash it, it's going to shrink and it's not going to fit anymore. And that could be a catastrophe. So we are going to help you avoid catastrophe and tell you to pre-shrink your fabric by washing it based on the instructions that usually your bolt, or maybe if you bought a package of fabric, it will tell you. You can even look it up online if you're not 100% sure what you should do to wash it. General settings for cotton is what you can look up. Okay, so knowing that you have washed your fabric now, you have to bring it over to the ironing board and press it. So I have my ironing board out over here. Our fabric has been washed and pre-shrunk, and we are going to make sure it's facing in the right direction. We are telling you to have the wrong side of the fabric facing up. The wrong side of the fabric is the side that's usually on the inside. Some people might call it the not pretty side. It often will look a little fainter than the outside of the fabric. So you can see the lemons now look very faint compared to the other side, which we would call the right sides of fabric. So the pretty sides, the good looking sides, the bright sides is the right side of fabric, and that would be the outside when we're done sewing, so what you will see. And this will be the wrong side of the fabric. We're going to have the wrong side of the fabric facing up, and we're going to go ahead and press it with our iron. If you don't have an iron, we recommend that you could always kind of stretch it out with your hands, or if you have a dryer and you put it on a warm setting and make sure it tumbles dries, and then you take it out and shake it out a little bit, that could help it to make sure you get rid of the wrinkles. What we're trying to do is get rid of the wrinkles, which could affect how you lay out your pattern pieces, and they might not end up the right size. So we're going to go ahead and take our iron and our ironing board, and if you don't have an ironing board, you can use a towel or some other surface that won't get burned. We don't recommend, ironing directly on a tabletop or a countertop or something like that. So put your iron on the correct setting. We have a cotton fabric, so we're going to go to the cotton setting for our iron. We're going to let it warm up here, and then we're going to press the fabric, which is different than ironing the fabric. Ironing, often people don't know the difference. And ironing is usually just dragging the iron across the fabric, and you can see how it gets a little crinkled there. And we're going to try to avoid any of these like crinkles or bulges because that might end up leaving some creases in our fabric. Pressing the fabric by gently pushing it down and lifting it up, pushing it down, lifting it up, will help us to avoid putting extra creases or wrinkles in our fabric. So press your fabric, the entire piece, and then you'll have a nice, smooth, clean piece of fabric to work with when you're ready to lay it out for your with your pattern pieces.